Before viewing this training program, take particular note that, since the behavior of a vehicle that is undergoing running tests can be unpredictable, all running tests must be conducted where there are no confinements or obstructions close to the vehicle. By obeying this important safety rule, you could prevent possible damage and personal injury. Here in diagrammatic form is the control idea used with Leyland pneumocyclic gearboxes. This is the latest six-way control system, of which there are minor variations as a result of design updating. However, the basic control idea is the same. The system that controls the transmission side of the vehicle, that is, the gearbox, the flywheel, and the rear axle, comprises four basic components. There's the auxiliary air tank of the vehicle, which, when charged, has an air pressure of between 105 and 120 pounds per square inch. From the auxiliary air tank, air passes to a limiting valve here. This limiting valve reduces the air pressure down to the working pressure of the control system, which is usually between 80 and 85 pounds per square inch. But there are exceptions to this pressure. Therefore, always consult the vehicle or the program data sheet for the correct air pressure. When the air has passed through the limiting valve, it then flows to the entry point of the electro-pneumatic unit, where it passes through an air filter here, before passing into the electro-pneumatic unit. An electrical supply is passed to this, the change speed unit. It's the change speed unit which, on manual selection of the appropriate gear, will send an electrical impulse to the electro-pneumatic unit, where a solenoid will come into operation to release air from the EP unit to the selected gear within the gearbox. For maintenance and fault diagnosis purposes, take particular note that a neutral wire runs from the change speed unit to the plug that takes the electrical impulse into the EP unit. In addition, on some models, there is an intermediate connection between the change speed unit and the EP unit. There are two main types of pneumocyclic gearbox, but the main gearbox casing is the same on each type. This gearbox, for example, is a remote-mounted type, and, having a separate flywheel, both the gearbox and the flywheel have independent oil supplies. A Leyland National, for example, has a close-coupled gearbox with a charged flywheel. That means that oil is pumped through this pipe system from the gearbox to charge the flywheel with oil. The Leyland Atlantean also has a close-coupled gearbox with a charged flywheel. However, since the engine of the Atlantean is mounted transversely at the rear of the vehicle, and this has an angled drive, the oil to charge the flywheel is drawn from and returned to the angled drive after lubricating the gearbox. When a vehicle is fitted with a gearbox having only 4 forward gears and a reverse gear, the control system will incorporate a 5-way EP unit. When a vehicle with 5 forward gears and reverse was introduced prior to the design of the 6-way EP unit, a single EP unit was added to the control system to accommodate the additional gear. You'll find that on systems of this configuration, the single EP unit may serve either 5th gear or reverse. A direct air control is an alternative to the electro-pneumatic change speed unit, but for the purpose of this training program, and since all of the maintenance and major gearbox fault diagnosis points to be made apply in general to all of the system types that have now been shown, the work will be demonstrated on a vehicle that has a 6-way EP unit in its gearbox control system. As an example, assume that a vehicle, on its return to the depot, is reported to have a condition of no drive in 2nd gear. The first check should be made here. Toggle the gearbox brake band by engaging the gear approximately 12 times. pause briefly between these applications, or the correct adjustment will not take place. If the problem is simply one of adjustment, this toggling exercise may correct the no drive or slip condition. If the fault is not cured by toggling, proceed in the following manner. This is the point where the air pipes from the EP unit enter the gearbox. It's here that you can establish whether a fault condition lies within the gearbox or whether it's in the change speed system. With the air tanks of the vehicle in a charge condition and the change speed lever in neutral, release the air inlet line here that feeds to second gear. Now select second gear. If air escapes from the end of this pipe when it's released, and you'll hear if air is present, then the control system is functioning correctly, and it's therefore a clear sign that it's the gearbox that is at fault. However, if there is no air escaping from the pipe outlet, it means that there's a fault in the control system. Therefore, first replace the air inlet pipe and proceed to examine the control system in the following manner. First, disconnect the plug that takes the electrical supply from the change speed unit to the entry point of the EP unit, and examine this socket for any sign of dirt or corrosion that would prevent a current flow and cause a malfunction. Examine also the plug for the same reason. The plug has a location channel, and each socket hole has an identification letter. Here is the location channel of the plug. The central hole is the neutral. This is the first gear socket, and this is the second gear supply socket. To determine whether there is an electrical supply from the change speed unit to this plug, use a test lamp fitted with a bulb that will consume no more than 0.7 of an amp. Place one lead of the test lamp in the second gear socket and the other in the neutral socket. Now apply second gear intermittently. If there's power from the change speed unit to the EP plug and to the second gear socket, the bulb will light. In some change speed selectors, only momentarily, because the circuitry of some change speed units is set to cut out on either underload or overload. On the underside of this change speed unit, the two-speed protection device is situated here, and beneath this cover are the electrical connections of the unit. If on any occasion a flow of current isn't available to the EP unit plug, check that all of the wires and the connections here are secure and that there are no signs of corrosion. Also, operate the change speed unit and ensure that the contacts are indeed making contact. Then, on the occasions when the vehicle you're servicing is fitted with an intermediate connection like this between the change speed unit and the EP unit, ensure that there's electrical continuity through the connection. You'll also come across this type of change speed unit. Again, always check that connections, both to and from the unit, are secure and clean. This is the location of the two-gear trip-out assembly. Here is the range of EP units in service. The 6-way EP is at the bottom. Above it, the 5-way EP unit is used both as a 4-speed control or with the single EP unit on the left to control a 5-speed gearbox. On the earlier 5-way EP unit, the valves can be operated manually by depressing the top of the units, like this, to operate the air valves. If air passes to the second gear from the EP during the manual operation, then the valve mechanism